Awesome. I'm Lowell Greenblatt. I'm with Macabre Daily, and this is exciting. I've been a fan of yours for a while,
Oh,
and
thank you.
yeah, I really dug First Word on Horror. And my wife's a teacher, so
Yeah.
I understand the importance of the February break, and I really appreciate
Oh, thanks.
it. So, man, I could talk to you for like hours, but just we'll start with the obsequiousness right away. Clay
Okay.
Chapman knows to wake up. Watch out for it. You talk about sort of leaning into the darkness and your apocalyptic visions and finding the worst case scenario. And I have anxiety, so
Yeah.
as many people do. And I'm just wondering, how did that first come about to help you with your writing? And when did it become useful for you?
That's a great question. I don't think it's ever been posed to me that way. Uh, when I first started writing, it was in the mid to late 90s, very much like a hobbyist because I was trying to become a punk musician too. But I figured I was a better writer than musician. I didn't try very hard at the music part. I just tried to write some songs. But anyway, when my son was born in 2000, my daughter was born 4 years later. My sort of writing interest took a real shift. I mean, because I was definitely clearly working out parental anxieties in a lot of my early short stories, and so many of them were sort of apocalyptic or pre-apocalyptic in a certain way. It was kind of interesting to see like how I reacted to becoming a parent. I had to write sort of everything I was afraid of. Or my wife, who was the one in college that introduced me to becoming a Stephen King reader, like she had read King when she was a teenager. I hadn't. Um, when she had the kids, she left horror for a long time. She just couldn't deal with it. She
Mhm.
eventually came back, but I totally understand sort of the response to that. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, it's just what's in my head. It's going to be there anyway. I figure I might as well try to put it to use.
Amen. I think you do that pretty well. And
Thanks.
I apologize if you've talked about this elsewhere, but you're kind of known as Mr. Ambiguity in the horror authorship space.
Yeah.
But the conclusions of your books have like real emotional cores to them. And I'm kind of curious, is there like a secret sauce to having like an emotional catharsis while keeping the narrative opaque?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I really appreciate that. Boy, I don't know. I think what I try to do, because one, like even though like I might be snarky about it sometimes, I realize that asking someone to read a novel that thematically is ambiguous is an ask, an ask of the reader that many readers don't want to deal with. Just go to Goodreads and see my reviews. Um, so with that in mind, the endings that I write, I honestly I think about. I want to honor the experience of the characters. Like I don't ever want it to be like they went through this horror and at the end they're like, "Yay, we did it." I want it to be reflected, their experience honored and reflected in who they've become and who they are by the end of the book. And I also want to try to honor the reader's experience as well in some way. I mean, it's kind of nebulous. It's a little bit by feel, but I mean, those are the two things that I sort of think about, um, especially if it is going to be an ambiguous sort of ending.
Interesting. I mean, I do think you'd nail it. And just going back to my
Thank you.
wife for a second, yeah,
Yeah.
no problem. It's not ambiguity she has a problem with so much, but she can't watch unsolved mysteries. Like that was the scariest show to
Mm.
her as a kid, but she loves Head Full of Ghosts. Love.
Oh,
So I'm like, you definitely cracked the code with her. Um,
well, thank you.
and
Well,
yeah,
thank her.
uh, I will. And okay, this is a real tough question. And we're not going by era, but what is
Yeah.
your all-time favorite Bad Religion album?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably Suffer, but I still have a soft spot for Stranger Than Fiction, just because that was the album that introduced them to me. Um, in
I'm
the
sorry, correct
yeah.
answer was Recipe for Hate, but go on.
Actually, maybe Recipe for Hate was my first one. That one doesn't get a lot of love, but that one I have three songs I still listen to over and over and over again. Obviously, American Jesus, Don't Pray on Me, and Skyscraper are the three that I still from that album listen to all the time.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite bands. So when I saw
Nice.
they named one of your books after an album, I was like, oh my god. Which leads me to ask. I know Art Barber is kind of like a punk in himself, but do you
Yeah.
have sort of like a punk rock idea for a book or like a punk rock horror book in you?
I mean, I think Paulsbury Club is probably gonna be the closest I get.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, in terms of, I mean, because for one thing, I mean, I wasn't living in squats. I mean, I was going to a lot of shows, but I didn't sort of live sort of like the hardcore sort of punk lifestyle.
Oh no, I'm from Long Island. Like
Yeah,
I get it. Don't worry.
yeah. No, I mean, I mean, I think punk music and horror have so much in common. I think they're both, uh, when they're at their best, they're commenting on mainstream culture, like, and they should be outsiders, pointing and sort of, critiquing mainstream culture. And both make me feel hopeful in like fuck you, raise your fist kind of way.
Yeah, God knows we need that right now.
Yeah,
Just one more question, if I could.
sure.
I was just part of a Fangoria reading book club
Hmm.
for horror movie,
Ah,
and I loved it. And it just made me think about the process of sort of writing and filmmaking. Can you recall an issue that you had with one of your books and how you sort of overcame it, like in the writing process?
oh, yeah, great question. Geez, I mean, I'll go back to A Head Full of Ghosts. So a little bit of a spoiler. If anyone, I don't know if this is going to be video or if this is going to be in print, you can just say
Well,
spoiler alert. But um, so with that book, I didn't outline it. I was sort of lucky. I felt like the whole thing fell into my lap. But like early in the book, I'd thrown in that Mary didn't like spaghetti sauce because my son didn't like spaghetti sauce when he was young. Otherwise, Mary, the kid, was like my daughter, which is why my wife doesn't read my books anymore. But that's a different story. uh, but but I was coming up to the end. It's like there's gonna be a poisoning. Like I knew there was gonna be a poisoning. It's like how am I gonna do the poisoning? And then it was like, hey, dumbass, like taking a walk. I was like, oh, it's gonna go in the spaghetti sauce. So to me, it was more like I sort of reverse engineered it without even knowing. Because I threw in this just fun character detail and it ended up being like a really important way to get the poisoning. And so I don't know, honestly, so much of it comes down to just like trusting your subconscious, you know,
Mhm.
uh, if you write enough every day, that just sort of keeps it going. It's like a muscle, and just keep praying that it spits out ideas and solutions for me.
Awesome. I think it definitely did. And I love First Word on Horror. I love your stuff and hearing
Thank you.
about you. And yeah, I believe that's our time, but this has been awesome, man.
Oh, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, if in the future you want to do a longer talk for Macabre Daily, yeah, just let me
Yeah,
know.
yeah, definitely. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So